Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday news episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have my good friend and fellow hacker Alex on to help talk about today's hacking news.
What's
Alex?
up, everybody?
Yeah, so
It's
if
me.
you were on our Wednesday stream, you might have noticed Alex's camera glitching out and his audio glitching out as well. So I flew all the way to Los Angeles so I could fix it. There we go.
About right.
All right, so we'll see how good of a job we did, but it's good to see everybody in the chat. We have actually not done the news show for a couple weeks now because we were either at DEF CON or getting ready to go to DEF CON. So if it is your first time tuning in or if it just has been a while, then it's good to see you all. Also, it was amazing to see everybody at DEF CON, and thank you to everybody who watches the show that stopped by to tell us how much you liked it. There were a couple people in particular who told us they really liked the new show, so that motivated me to make sure we got it done this week, even though, took a little bit to get set up. So we've got lots of news to cover this week, and we're going to start in at DEF CON. So at DEF CON, Alex was up very, very late working on updates to our USB Nugget. And in the end, everybody who's at DEF CON got access to a really, really new updated version of the Nugget that nobody had seen before. So Alex, you want to tell us a little bit about the updates that you just pushed to the USB Nugget project?
Yeah, I actually finished writing the current binary release, which is now pushed to version 1.1, literally like the night before we started selling all the boards. So that was quite a rush. The biggest pivot that we made with the current iteration of the software design is we moved from the quick deploy system, which used to be like the 3-click interface, over to a traditional file directory. So if you take a look at my screen here, you can find the link to the latest release over on our GitHub page. What you can see here is under the releases tab, v1.1 beta. I don't think I have a picture of it pulled up, but the interface looks really cute. It's a nice little scrolling graphic interface. I have it on my Nugget here, which you probably can't see from that distance, but that was one of the biggest improvements we made. We also changed the web interface a little bit to compensate for this as well. Another really great feature that's sort of been plaguing like our workshops for quite a while is the fact that basically every Nugget will by default spawn up the same Wi-Fi access point name. So we finally added a configuration file that allows you to change the Wi-Fi name and also the default password, so you're not accessing other people's Nuggets inadvertently. And then in addition to that, another really annoying bug was certain operating systems would also profile the Nugget. Like for example, macOS would flag the Nugget when it's plugged in, since it sees it as a generic keyboard instead of like one that's specific for Apple. So the ability to customize the VID, the vendor ID, and also product ID was another feature that I implemented for the configuration. So that way you can spoof basically any keyboard or HID device that you want to emulate. So it's as simple as just like, you can see I have my Nugget plugged in here. So if I just pop open the flash drive for that, oh yes, my computer has terrible lag. But basically there's a file on there called usbnugget.conf. You open that up in a text file, and then you just swap out the VID and PID. And this should allow you to basically change what the Nugget is identifying as, which I think right now I have set, as you can see here, to an Apple Incorporated Pro keyboard.
Yeah, so if you...
That is very handy.
Yeah, so if you set your Nugget to an Apple Incorporated Pro keyboard, then when it gets plugged into a MacBook, it doesn't pop up the keyboard profiler and completely ruin your script. So this was a really big update, because even though right now it's a configuration file and it's not something that's in the Wi-Fi menu, it is something people have been asking for, and I myself as a researcher find myself needing this all the time.
Yes, here you can see if I just run cat configuration file, and this prints out the current settings that we have here. You're able to swap out the VID and PID so you can emulate basically any HID device that you want.
Yeah, and then the Wi-Fi feature is cool too, because like I said, like Alex said, we've been trying to do workshops where everybody is, using their USB Nugget, but they all have the exact same name. So when you open your phone, you either see like a ton of different access points that all say Wi-Fi Nugget or USB Nugget, or sometimes your phone will think that they're part of an extended service set, like you're on like a university campus or something that has a bunch of like Wi-Fi extenders, and then combine all the Nuggets nearby into one Nugget. And then when you try to join it, it's dealer's choice as to which USB Nugget you're actually connecting to. So this is a really great update. Alex was up very late doing it. So if you have a USB Nugget, or if you were at DEF CON, make sure to check it out, because it added a lot of functionality, I think. So any other thoughts on that?
Besides that, if you guys have any feedback, can make sure to drop it on the issues tab, also under the GitHub repo. We already have a lot of feedback in bugs that need to be fixed.
Somebody asked, what's up with the German stickers? I went to the C3 conference, the Chaos Communication Congress conference in Germany, and I got some of the best hacker stickers I've ever got. I'm trying to go this year as well, so that's why some of these stickers are in German. I don't speak German. I'm sorry, ich spreche kein Deutsch. Also, nice. Some questions about the Wi-Fi Nugget. So that's something that we kind of released at the last minute when we were at the booth, and we realized we had 100 of them, and we were like, you know what, let's go for it. So we released this. There's a number of different projects that supported on it. We actually pivoted to the ESP32S2, which is the microcontroller behind the USB Nugget, and that's why we have been working so hard on making sure that that's like the flagship. But the Wi-Fi Nugget sold out almost immediately, which gave us the sign that it's time to get back on having some development work done on it. So you can absolutely expect us to be going back and working on the Wi-Fi Nugget soon, because frankly, so many people were interested in it. It really solidified to us that, like, yes, this is a tool people want, and yes, there's definitely some need for focusing on it, even though we love the USB Nugget and we've been doing most of our work there the last couple of months. So thank you for the feedback there. Any other notes on the USB Nugget?
The Wi-Fi Nugget or the USB Nugget?
Either.
Yeah. We sort of pivoted towards the USB Nugget since it was like also more in line with like the Hack5 products. It supports DuckyScript, of course, and it was just like generally easier than the wide amount of features that we wanted to incorporate for the Wi-Fi Nugget. That's like a huge project that's like kind of beyond us at this point. There's like so many other things that we're still working on maintaining with various other projects, like the USB Nugget being one of them. So we're getting back around to that eventually. Quite recently, actually, I started working on a proof of concept for a video that we're doing, which is about warshipping. So that features the ESP8266, which is the same microcontroller that you'll find inside of a Wi-Fi Nugget. So I actually started speccing out a reconnaissance library that makes it easy to gather reconnaissance and do all sorts of like cool attacks and that kind of thing. So hopefully some of that can also be ported over to the Wi-Fi Nugget. But I can say if you guys do own one of those, stay tuned for more cool stuff, hopefully dropping soon.
Yeah, so that is a good pivot into some development Alex has been doing around warshipping. So we're currently doing a video on whether or not it's feasible to send out packages and actually like attack a company or attack a target by just having a box that's, you know, to the wrong name or something that stays in the mailroom for a certain amount of time and then comes back to them. And what we want to do is some Wi-Fi phishing and see if we can actually get somebody to give us the password. So what Alex has been working on is a microcontroller-based warshipping tool that allows you to actually get in there and then maybe grab some passwords from the people who are in that office or wherever it's targeting, and then come back and be able to share that information with you. And he's also been doing some interesting features around that to make it more sneaky and robust. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, if you want to switch over to my screen real quick, you can check out the repo for this. We're going to be posting the video hopefully soon, and then also maybe a separate breakout video detailing the code a little bit. This is based off my ESP bug project a little bit, which is basically just reconnaissance on this really cheap chip called the ESP8266. You can find these for like $2 on AliExpress or something like that. What's really cool about the ESP is for such a nominal, like for such a cheap price, you can basically do like a whole bunch of crazy stuff. You can run Wi-Fi attacks, you can gather reconnaissance. It even has the power to host a completely self-contained web page, which you can use for like IoT stuff or even phishing in this case. So I tried to pack basically all of those features into a single proof of concept here for this warshipping demonstration. Some of the features include low power mode. So if you're shipping this off somewhere and you want like if this is battery powered and you actually want this to survive in transit, having low power mode allows it to be able to survive being shipped and then also run the payload once it arrives at the target destination. What's really cool about this also is with low power mode, you can also set like intervals for how often it wakes up. So in my case, I added a 30-minute thing where every 30 minutes it'll start up, run a quick Wi-Fi scan. Oh, thank you. It'll start up every 30 minutes, run a quick Wi-Fi scan to see if any known Wi-Fi access points are nearby. I can actually pull up the code for that. And if it detects the target network that it's meant to be shipped to, like for example, if it's shipped to Varonis headquarters, if it detects that Varonis Wi-Fi is nearby, then at that point it can start deploying the payload, which will spawn up a fake Wi-Fi access point and also subsequently the phishing page as well. not going to go into too much detail about this code here, but yeah, basically this thing spawns up a phishing page. You can use this to log domain credentials for whatever corporation or business or whatever you're trying to target. And it also gathers Wi-Fi reconnaissance, so you can see things like nearby Wi-Fi networks, some devices as well, which can be used later for enumeration. I was trying to get probe requests to work as well, which can also be used as another attack vector. So for example, seeing networks that other devices in the area have connected to in the past. Doesn't look like the ESP8266 supports that because of packet truncation, but I do think the newer ESP32 SDK does allow you to see that. So hopefully I can mess around with that in the future as well. But still, even for this chip, that's still very impressive, the amount of stuff that you can do with this.
Cool. All right. So we had one question in the chat asking about whether or not it was possible to make a support display for Spacian's Deauthor V3, or if it's possible. Can't help you with that one. However, the V3 of the Deauthor is something that I think I'm going over in a Wi-Fi like hacking interview with David Bumball pretty soon, which you can hopefully see on his channel. I was involved in the development of the V3 of the Deauthor. Specifically because there's some attacks that I, as a Wi-Fi researcher, am super interested in, like the beacon swarm attack and Wi-Fi phishing attacks. So it does have a lot of really cool features, and it doesn't support any sort of like display right now. Like, for example, it's not possible to use it with like, you know, just like the buttons or anything like that. So really good question. I would say that some of these attacks are so complicated that you really do need to set up some variables or have some sort of access to like input something. Although you can like clone a network and attack that, maybe like it, you know, it kind of depends. So I would say for the Wi-Fi phishing attack, it would totally be possible to actually add like a GUI to it that allows you to use the buttons and screen. That would totally be possible. For some of the other attacks, like the beacon swarm attack, you would need to preload some files or otherwise do some configuration stuff that you could not do through just buttons. So it requires a little bit of thought, but I think that that is totally possible and would be really cool. I unfortunately just do not have time to do it. So good luck on that.
Yeah, the cool thing about the V2 is it had like the web interface that you could also use to run attacks. Unfortunately, since it's just a single radio chip that the author was running on, in order to run those attacks, it had to switch from like Wi-Fi over to like attack mode and basically like do this sketchy like handoff. So I think one of the reasons why Spacian probably pivoted towards just like the CLI for that was just that latency kind of sucked.
All right, so over on my screen, we have another big update for microcontrollers. This one, not from us. So CircuitPython 8.0 Beta 0 has been released. And if you have been following CircuitPython, or if you're interested in microcontrollers, this is how you can start writing very, very easy, basic Python on microcontrollers in order to design proof of concepts and just generally program with Python on lots of different types of microcontrollers. So this has added support for a lot of really cool things. And in particular, if you're savvy, you notice that this snake kind of looks like an espresso chip. And in fact, this has added a lot of functionality for espresso chips, just like our Nugget. And also this Adafruit Metro ESP32S2 Express. So there's lots of different products, including ours, that support the ESP32S2. And it seems that CircuitPython has singled this out as like the most supported and most stable platform for working on CircuitPython with the Espressif family of chips. So that's really, really good news for us. And it's great news for anybody that happens to have a USB Nugget. Because if you get bored of Alex's program that he slaved over a hot computer for hours making for you, then instead you can also write your own proof of concepts using CircuitPython. And you can just, you know, flash over Alex's program once you are done working it out of your system, because I'm sure you're hungry for what he's made. But what's really cool about this is, again, if you want to take something like the USB Nugget or an Adafruit Metro or anything that has an ESP32S2 chip, you can now do something called a Wi-Fi workflow. And I've literally never used this before. I've never heard of it. And that's because it's brand new in CircuitPython 8.0. And you can kind of go through and read the, oh, sorry to the person who is having a hard time reading the small text. You can go through and read some of the notable changes, but added Wi-Fi workflow is really the one that caught my attention. I was like, what's this Wi-Fi workflow? That sounds interesting. So usually when you're working with the CircuitPython board, you can plug it into your computer and you can work with the files over USB. And that's the way that it natively supports doing anything you would want to do. Super, super simple. Now there's a second way of doing this. And that really interests me because I love working with these microcontrollers. And if there's another way of uploading files or being able to run things, then I'm really interested and I want to see how it works. So if I go over to the support here, I can see that it now documents a new way of working with CircuitPython boards. And all I have to do is make a .env file that has the Wi-Fi credentials and a password. And if I do that, then I can connect to my board over Wi-Fi. It'll basically join my Wi-Fi network. I can then go to the address that it identifies as like once it connects, or I can go to circuitpython.local, and that will open up a website that lets me see what's on the board, write new files, and all this other cool stuff. So I'm still, trying to see exactly how this works over. Let's see if I have it up over here. There we go. Sorry for the infinite tunnel. All right, so this is what it looks like. When I go to 192.168.1.232 on my network, I see welcome to CircuitPython's web API. I can go to the file browser, or I can go to the serial terminal, and I can start working with code. So it identifies the board, the version, and it also will find other CircuitPython devices on my network, which is so cool. Whoa, so if I go to one, I know where all the others are, and that I think is really awesome because, it's just a very friendly way of presenting this to beginners. So if I want to, let's say I want to run code, I can click on the serial terminal, and then I can print, hello world. See if that works.
Yeah, that says rent. What the heck?
Oh no, print. Come on. Hello. Now I'm just getting desperate. There we go. Okay, so it worked.
Nice.
So I am currently writing Python on a microcontroller via a web browser over Wi-Fi. And that's all completely built in, all completely supported and well documented on the new version of CircuitPython. So if you're waiting for a good reason to get into working with microcontrollers, then, I think this is it. So here's another thing. You can go to the file browser. I've already input my password, and boom, look at that. I can see all the different files that are on here. The only thing that sucks is USB is using the storage, only allowing reads. Alex, what does that mean?
You want to explain? To it. Yeah, there's an issue. It's been a while since It's been a while since I've developed with CircuitPython for a good reason. CircuitPython has its limitations since it's
a design choice.
Sure, it's a feature. CircuitPython's more oriented towards quick prototyping and also like beginners and that kind of thing. So if you're actually trying to develop like full-on software like the USB Nugget software, which we initially tried to write in CircuitPython, that's where you run into issues. So like one of the core features of the USB Nugget is the ability to write files in DuckyScript over to a flash drive that's built into the Nugget, and also run those files from the interface. There's a memory feature, as we'll call it, where what was it? I believe you can't like read and write like simultaneously or something to USB.
Here, yes. So CircuitPython implemented a design choice that allows either the CircuitPython program to access the memory or the user to access the memory over USB. So what's frustrating is if this is mounted as a USB drive, then it will not allow the program to write. And this is because a lot of the time beginners won't have the experience to make sure that they don't overwrite memory or corrupt the memory. So this is the choice that is made to generally protect users and either have like a program mode or a USB mode in order to prevent like some sort of mix up in the memory. But this is also a little bit limiting. So I just am going to attempt to eject the CircuitPython board, and let's see if that solves the problem. I'm actually a little curious to see if that would fix the issue. So if I go back to Chrome and then I go to the file browser, can I now access it? Yeah, I can. Okay, look at that. So now I can choose files, I can upload things, I can create directories. So all I needed to do was eject the CircuitPython board, and then it basically releases it so that the program can write to it. And now over this web interface, I can go ahead and upload files or manipulate files or do whatever I want. So that is super, super cool. And yeah, like my code.py files right here, like that's great. So this is by far the easiest way I found of working with CircuitPython so far. You don't need to install anything at all. You just have a browser and you can suddenly start, uploading like code. So I really like that. The fact that they offer the REPL is also super cool. So you can get started writing code right away. So yeah, highly recommended if you have a USB Nugget and you're interested in CircuitPython, or if you have any ESP32 S2 board, definitely check out this update for CircuitPython because it allows for a lot of really cool functionality.
I do wish they would fix that feature at some point, though. Being able to write to the files in addition to like access them from CircuitPython would be nice.
Mm-hmm. All right, you got something?
Yep. If we switch over to my screen, we have some more microcontroller news real quick. So Nordic Semiconductors, who manufactures a variety of different wireless chips. They have like Bluetooth. I believe they also have mobile chips as well. Just came out with a new line of chips called the 7 series or 7000, I believe. So the first chip that was introduced is the NRF 7002, which is a new Wi-Fi enabled chip that can be used basically just as a drop-in thing with Wi-Fi support. So this is one of the first, actually thinking about it, there's some other chips that support Wi-Fi 6, but I was going to say that this is one of the first chips that I've seen that supports Wi-Fi 6 and dual band on a single integrated circuit. So this is actually mostly used as a companion IC, which means it's not a full-fledged microcontroller. You can't like develop on this, but rather it's a chip that you can drop in and access over SPI, which is the serial peripheral interface. And this gives your other hardware designs the ability to communicate over Wi-Fi. That being said, there are some microcontrollers that do support dual band Wi-Fi 6 that I was forgetting about, like the ESP32C5. But the reason why I find this cool is since it's a companion integrated circuit, if you have any existing hardware designs, you can just basically slap this thing in there and use it right off the bat. So I think this also provides an interesting alternative to something like the built-in chip that's on the new Pi Pico W, which is, I was actually looking at the spec sheet for this the other day, the CYW 43439. So that one's limited to just 2.4 gigahertz. And also I believe there's like some other built-in limitations to like the SDK that were like, that some people found quite frustrating to develop with. What's interesting though is this also supports Bluetooth, although that is locked down for some reason on the Pi Pico, even though—
You mean the Pi Pico W, which I'm holding in my hand right now?
Yeah, so that thing only has access to 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It sucks that the Bluetooth is locked down.
For now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have like a regular Pi Pico or something like that, and you're looking for an alternative chip, then I think this NRF 7002 could be quite promising.
Yeah, so one question in the chat was whether or not in the previous segment on CircuitPython, it was possible to use both USB and Wi-Fi. You can switch between them. It's super easy. So if you want to write via USB, you can do that. If you just want to use the Wi-Fi, you can do that too. But now that it has like an API for this, it becomes really easy on your computer to have like a web front end to very easily program in CircuitPython. And then like you can also have it mounted in USB too. So, all right, so we have some other stuff to cover. Over on my screen, we have Empire 4.7. So I've been covering Empire, PowerShell Empire, or some iteration of that for a really long time on Nullbyte, and it's fascinating to see that it is now merged with another program. So this is, let's see, merger of PowerShell Empire and Python Empire projects. I guess they were like, you know what, guys, our names are similar enough. We should just brand together. But this framework has always worked really well on a variety of operating systems. It's Star Wars branded. But what's cool about this is how easily it's able to infect and run on Windows systems using like PowerShell. That's always really been its strength, is how good it is at leveraging PowerShell to do a bunch of bad things. So I really like this program. I have not tried this update yet, but I likely will be covering it in a future video because it's lived this long and it's still being updated. That means it's useful, you know? So we're going to probably explore this in the future, but if you're looking for some interesting tools to try out, then Empire is definitely on my list. So also at DEF CON and Black Hat, I didn't get to see, but was pleased to see that Patrick Wardle, our good friend who's been on the show before, was doing a presentation on macOS security called Rooted. And that is talking about how Zoom can be used to get root access on a macOS system because of some very insecure trust issues between the Zoom client and macOS. So if you want to check this out, it was a really good presentation. The slides are all here. And it talks about how Zoom's macOS application has a bunch of critical flaws that provide a reliable path for a local unprivileged attacker to root. So obviously, people tend to think that macOS systems are pretty secure and that, you know, it's not something like having a very, very common application like Zoom on it would be enough to be able to breach that system. But in fact, it is. And there are security issues like this all the time with macOS. So if you're interested in macOS security, there is absolutely nobody I can recommend more than Patrick Wardle to follow. He makes not only fantastic macOS security tools, but also keeps an eye on all these macOS security problems. So yeah, definitely somebody to follow if you want to keep an eye on Mac security. So not going to go too far into it, but Sick Codes has jailbroken a John Deere tractor. And of course, what did they do with it?
Probably ran Doom on it.
They ran Doom on it. That's the first
Did they?
thing. Yes, they absolutely.
Nice.
That's absolutely the first thing they did with it. See, if I scroll down,
Oh, no.
Yep. And yes, that is a corn-themed Doom running on a John Deere touchscreen.
That's what I thought.
Of course, hackers, it was either going to be a calculator or this.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so this has been a debate that's raging back and forth for a long time about whether or not the people who buy these tractors actually own them. And John Deere has a reputation for taking open source code and then putting it in things that are decidedly closed source and denying people who buy their tractors the ability to actually update them or have real ownership or repair them without having to have a technician come out and unlock them. So it seems as though this is not going so well for John Deere, because it looks like a bunch of unpacked Linux and Windows CE boxes with LTE modems are what is primarily powering our nation's agriculture.
Nice.
All right, so also, Lorenzo from Vice was one of the only people targeted in a very interesting attack on Signal. So if we talk about Signal all the time as a secure messaging platform, and it has a bunch of things built in that made this attack not as effective as it could have been against other types of platforms. So let's take a look at what this attack was and how exactly it went down. So the target here is a journalist at Motherboard, and obviously this is someone who's going to be talking to confidential sources. And I'm not saying that I've leaked information to journalists before, like from Motherboard, but it would be bad if people who are trying to share confidential information were instead sharing it with a third party who managed to gain access to this account. So hackers broke into the systems of Twilio. And Alex, what is Twilio for?
I've used Twilio before as an SMS API for microcontrollers. I believe they offer some other range of services as well now.
Oh yeah. So what else can SMS be used for when it comes to verifying accounts?
Probably like 2FA or like 2FA or that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So Twilio is very popular, so much so that Signal also uses it for their SMS verification.
Oh crap, that's nice.
Yes, which means that if you were trying to get into your account or trying to change your account over and you got a SMS token, then that you would probably not want an attacker being able to access that 2FA code, because that means they could basically break into anyone's account. So because attackers were able to see the contents of the text messages that were being sent via Twilio, they were able to get this journalist 2FA code, which means they were able to basically port his Signal account over to their number for a short period of time. Now, what's interesting is Signal is fairly locked down when it comes to this sort of attack, so it didn't allow the attacker to get any message history, profile information, or contact lists. That's really good. And the reason for that is that Signal had a PIN enabled that makes it so that you can't download that information without inputting it. So while it's possible they could have gotten that information, this feature was locked down and it didn't allow the attacker to gain that sort of knowledge. It did, however, allow them to contact people as that journalist or respond to people who were messaging the journalist the same way. So for many hours, some attacker managed to gain access to this journalist account and was actively messaging people and communicating via that Signal account. So there was a way to prevent this. You can do what's called a registration. Oh yes, 13 hours. So the registration lock is a feature that prevents somebody without a PIN or a special code from registering your account. So that means that you wouldn't be able to just get this 2FA code and register the account on a new number. You would need the registration code as well. And this was something that the journalist did not have enabled, although they did have a PIN set up. So that is why the attackers didn't get access to contacts. And this could have been much worse. Yeah, so this is just a fascinating story of how you can unknowingly have somebody break into your account that has otherwise pretty good security, because it doesn't really matter that the person was not the victim of a SIM swapping attack. They really were just the victim of somebody breaking into the provider who was managing the SMS for the two-factor authentication. So because Signal is seen as such a secure platform, this shocked a lot of people. But frankly, these sorts of supply chain attacks where you go after somebody in the chain of trust with your real target, who might be a softer target. In this case, it looked like Twilio was. That's very common nowadays.
All right. I do believe, ironically, also some Cloudflare employees were breached or something like that, resultant of this attack, which is kind of funny. Since they're supposed to protect also against that. But yeah, that's quite spooky.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
Cool.
over to
So
you.
for some other news, this past week we were at DEF CON, of course. We were working at the Hack5 booth. So I have some quick news about some Hack5 product updates that are pretty cool. So of course, the advent of the Wi-Fi Coconut. This is the latest, hottest new Hack5 product. Can you guys even see that? Yeah, it's like a little light up UFO kind of form factor. It's pretty cute. This thing's pretty cool. I got to mess around with it a little bit yesterday, but basically it's a passive Wi-Fi reconnaissance tool that has 14 different Wi-Fi radios built in. So by default, this thing is just running a promiscuous Wi-Fi scan. It saves all of this data into a PCAP file. If you switch over to my screen, you can see how easy it is to get started with this. After installing the binary, it's just as simple as running sudo Wi-Fi Coconut. Starts up the access point, and then in a second here, it's just going to start scanning and sniffing on all 14 Wi-Fi channels, which is really cool. And it saves this out to a regular file that you can open up inside of Wireshark. So I'm pretty interested. Oh no, why is this lagging?
Is that the right port? I plugged it into the power port and it would not start.
Perhaps.
There's two nearly identical looking ports, and like when trying this myself, it would just hang up. Oh yeah.
Oh, now it says no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you were right the first time.
Oh no. All right.
Live demos. But I was able to get this working on macOS also super quickly, which was cool.
Yeah, but anyways, if it worked properly, it should save recon from all 14 Wi-Fi channels, which I think is really cool. I want to find a way to hack this thing and also make it do Wi-Fi attacks, which I think would be pretty cool on all 14 channels simultaneously. That could be pretty annoying.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah. Here.
Oh wait, hey,
is it almost
opening.
done?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Opening Wi-Fi Coconut.
Yeah. This is a very old computer we are opening it up on.
Yeah. What's also cool is I believe these are 14 LEDs that correspond to each of the different Wi-Fi radios, so you can actually see these things powering up. But if you run a...
Here, unplug that and give it to me.
Here you go.
This computer is powerful. I'm going to try it on this, but go on.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I do believe I ran like LSUSB or like something like that. You could actually see and interface each of eachly, which is really cool. Oh, there you go.
Mine's so much. All right, switch over to my screen.
Nice. Yeah, it's really damn simple. It starts up, you create a PCAP.
Boom, look at that.
Yeah,
and then it's recording. Yeah, nice and easy. So if you have a computer that's not from like 2015, then this will work just fine. So this is like a MacBook and it started like that. So it's not the Coconut, although it does, the fan on it is not, I'm not gonna say loud, but you know it's running. So there's no doubt that this thing is working. But yeah, the Wi-Fi Coconut is definitely awesome, being able to go through and see everything. I can also immediately see which channels are most in use, which is great.
Yeah, I do think it's really cool because this is probably one of the easiest like prepackaged tools that I've ever used for like Wi-Fi recon or that kind of thing. It's really cool that it has that built in. Yeah, I can't wait to mess around with that more. Besides that, some other new tools were unveiled, like the latest iteration of the USB rubber ducky, which features USB Type-C on the other end. That's basically as far as it goes for the actual hardware improvements, but there are some interesting software updates, like the pivot towards, what is it now, DuckyScript 2.0, I believe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's also a new version of the DuckyScript keystroke injection language, which is really cool. So that supports a whole bunch of really cool things, including the language itself being Turing complete now, which means it supports like full-fledged programming from within that language.
Yeah, check out my screen. So this is Payload Studio. This is what comes along with the new USB rubber ducky.
Yeah.
We've got the menu bar, we've got the resources, and then over here we got the payload editor, and then over here we got the compiler to generate the payload, and the console to type stuff and look for errors, and then the help file to get you information in the session status, and then the breadcrumbs. Okay, we're done. So I'm going to pick the USB rubber ducky. I don't know how this works, so I'm going to say help. Give me documentation or a quick reference, and then it opens, and boom, like I have all this information along with, you know, a couple little examples. That's great. So let's say that I just want this one, Windows modifier key, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. I can copy this. I can copy this actually, since it's more just kind of ready. I can go back. I can type this in here. Look at that, a bunch of random keys. And then I can, let's say I want to generate this payload. Generate payload, the console opens up, lets me know what's going on. Hey, it loves it. It thinks this payload's the best. Now I can download my payload. payload, boom, inject.bin. I can drag and drop that onto the USB rubber ducky, and we're good to go. Honestly, I kind of want to find a way to use these on the USB Nugget or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of the features that I've been wanting for a while is also having like pre-compiled binaries for keystrokes and stuff like that. That is like one limitation. I guess running it as like an interpreted thing on
Design
the USB
choice.
Nugget. Yeah, sure. It's a feature. It's a feature to have that interpreted language, but
yeah,
binaries would be cool.
Yeah. So this is super awesome. So if you haven't tried it out, if you did get the new USB rubber ducky, check out Payload Studio. I haven't worked on it. Give me the USB rubber ducky.
Here you go. Take your ducky.
Can I just drag it? Okay. We'll try
do that later.
Yeah, we'll do that later. But it is really, really cool that this now works out via like a web interface, so that you can just download the compiled version. You don't need to mess around with anything else. I don't know about people have asked me about an offline version. I don't know about that yet. But I imagine
of the Payload Studio?
Yeah, the Payload Studio.
Not sure about that.
Yeah, right. Sometimes you can just download the website and it just works because all the JavaScript or whatever you need is like there locally. But I don't know. Try it. Tell me what happens. I also like that there's a hidden squeeze button to get it to like stop executing a payload. Apparently, I haven't tested it, but that's what it says in the documentation. So nice. Really cool update.
Yeah. We switch back over to my screen real quick. Just some other quick things. So one interesting. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So another interesting proof of concept that was unveiled in addition to this is a keystroke reflection attack. So this is a pretty cool proof of concept that actually uses a feature that's been built into the USB HID protocol for some time, where basically, are we still on camera? Okay. Basically, USB devices, or HID devices rather, have bilateral communication where the computer is also sending information back to the HID device in addition to receiving like keystrokes or like mouse movements and stuff like that. And one of the things that it can receive is basically the status of modifiers like the caps lock key, numlock, and things like that. So you'll notice, like, if you plug in into a single computer, if you press caps lock or numlock on one keyboard, all of the other keyboards are also going to be receiving that same signal, and you might see like the key light up or something like that. So this attack basically takes advantage of this interesting design choice in this protocol in order to use that as a side channel for data exfiltration. So for example, if you are targeting an air-gapped computer and you don't want to do something that's as obvious as exfiltrating data as you normally would over USB, like to a storage device, you can use this toggle feature to quickly toggle on and off like the caps lock or numlock key or stuff like that, in order to basically just like bit bang the file that you want to exfiltrate directly over to the ducky drive. So for example, I think you can see that somewhere down here. Yeah, but basically, if you were able to get a program running that's able to toggle on and off one of these keys, the ducky is able to read the status of these key codes, save it as a binary file directly onto the ducky drive without even raising any alarm, since it's basically just built into the HID protocol. So I thought this was a really cool and novel attack, and I hope that I can demonstrate it maybe in an upcoming video. This one is really cool to see. In addition to that, the last Hack 5 update I have here. There's a new update for the Wi-Fi Pineapple interface, something that I've been wanting for a long time. So I actually did a video a while back on gathering reconnaissance with AeroDump, which is a popular Wi-Fi reconnaissance tool. And one of the features that I really liked about that is the fact that you can do color filters. So you're able to sort out like Wi-Fi access points and like clients and stuff like that, and apply like custom filters to different devices, which makes that really nice. Wi-Fi Pineapple has a really smooth GUI interface, but one of the things that I wish it had was the ability to do color filters in a similar way. This has finally been implemented thanks to some help from the guys over at Kismet Wireless, and here you can see that this sweet new feature has been added to the Wi-Fi Pineapple access point, as well as some other cool improvements to the reconnaissance AP and the rogue AP. So this is all really cool.
All right, one known bug of the Wi-Fi Coconut: do not plug it into the same USB dongle as your cam link if you are running a show. By the way, that's why our camera went offline. The Wi-Fi Coconut was so powerful that it took our camera offline, and I had to run it through OBS now because it won't directly link anymore. So keep in mind, it's powerful, and there might be some side effects.
Do you have any news or don't we?
Yeah. So over on my screen, we have an update on the Truth Spy spyware. So this is something we covered before. That is something that's been Trojan in a lot of different applications that have been installed on various phones all over the world. And previously, it was not really possible to know whether or not you were one of those phones. What's interesting is that now there is the ability to actually look this up and find out if your phone was one of the ones that was compromised. So this is a massive amount of phones that are part of this like spyware network. But over here, this tool will allow you to get the IMEI from your phone or the Google device ads ID. This number is way more annoying to get than this number. This number, you can just dial this and it will automatically pop up and allow you to copy it. This, you have to manually write down because it will not allow you to copy and paste it. So you can use either one of these values and type it into here and press search, and it should check to see whether or not your device is officially listed as having been infected by this spyware. So if it has been, then you definitely want to go through and make sure that it's uninstalled and follow whatever advice they have for making sure that it is not persistent on your system. I really like tools like this because it means that instead of just hoping that you're not infected, you can actually determine whether you were targeted. And that's something I think is really useful for anybody who might be a victim of this spyware. So also, this is something I didn't know. Recently, a friend was trying to sign up for car insurance, and they were actually able to see other cars that were listed at the address and other drivers that were listed at the address just by beginning to sign up for a car insurance quote. I didn't know that these insurance companies were so liberal with that information. So expect an update rather soon about whether or not you can extract OSINT information from starting a car insurance quote from a targeted address. Alex had actually suggested you as a driver to add to our friend's insurance when he started signing up for, I think it was Progressive.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I hardly even own a car.
Yeah.
I just have a license.
Yeah, exactly. So like all that information is, it's kind of startling to know they have access to it and that they're willing to just kind of like leak it in this way. Mm-hmm. So we'll see more about that. As you can see on my computer, the Wi-Fi Coconut's working great on macOS, and it's super easy to install, although it needs to be up to the latest version, as I found out. And then let's talk about Utah. So Utahns, which is a very strange like word for like somebody who lives in the state of Utah, but I guess, you know, work with what you got, has decided to digitize their ID cards and driver's licenses. And there's actually a pretty good amount of places now around Utah that accept this, where these are stores where you can go and, you know, buy like beer or whatever else where you would need to traditionally show your physical driver's license. Instead, you can just call up something on your app and be able to show them. Now, I'm not going to go into like why it's a bad idea to hand a police officer your unlocked phone. In the case of, you know, being able to, I don't know, like use this at a traffic stop or something, because that's kind of where this is going. But it is an interesting platform, and as everybody in cybersecurity will be very excited to hear, it's very secure. Because not anybody can just access it. It's got secondary verification like PIN numbers and facial recognition. And yeah, it's extremely secure.
That's reassuring.
Because it's got a series of private encrypted keys unique to each other. Good luck, guys. We'll see you in a couple news cycles. But yeah, I'm not totally sure this is a good idea, but Utah's going forward with it so we can sit back and see exactly what happens. Although I anticipate that being able to modify these might not be as they think, as we've seen in some other countries where they've tried to implement something similar. I think we covered that not that long ago, and you were able to just basically modify. Oh, it was Australia. You were basically able to modify it however you want. Yeah. So like, good luck. Hopefully that is not still a thing. All right, let's do over to you.
Cool. Switch over to my screen. You can see that if any of you are Janet Jackson fans like I am,
larger.
There you go. If any of you guys are Janet Jackson fans, you could inadvertently be taking advantage of an old vulnerability that crashes computers just by simply listening to her hit Rhythm Nation. So apparently the song contains frequencies that disrupt the natural resonance of hard drives, like physical HDDs. So if you were to play the song, there's some interesting cases where computers can actually crash just because of the natural frequencies that are in this song. So it seems that is hard drives that are operating at 5,400 RPM are vulnerable to this. This is kind of an old attack and an interesting side channel attack at that.
Oh my God, sorry. I was trying to play the video. I wanted to hear it, but instead I got it down.
So it's an interesting side channel attack. This mostly works against older computers, but it was just interesting to see this making the rounds again. Similarly, there's some other interesting properties to acoustics. For example, we've seen some like analog versions of this where like, bridges and like stuff like that, which also can fall victim to like resonance and stuff like that. Like if too many people are like walking on a bridge, it can collapse or like whatever. But
yeah, this song was published so far before you were born.
Yeah.
This is basically an oldies for you. Okay. Yeah. So that's I've played the song on this computer. It's immune. It's
Nice.
worth pointing out that the computers that are affected by this vulnerability are ones that have a hard drive that were made in 2005. So if you're worried that your computer might suddenly stop working, or that nearby computers might suddenly stop working just by playing Rhythm Nation, then you don't need to worry unless you have a computer that you've been lovingly taking care of with the same original hard drive from 2005. Now, if there does happen to be a hard drive out there that is still kicking and you want to give it its final ride out, you could always just play Rhythm Nation very loud, and maybe that's apparently enough to cause issues with some hard drives. So really weird that song's, but I guess it's only a matter of time before something manages to like match that natural like rhythm.
Yeah. We also have another attack pulled up here, similarly using acoustics to attack hard drives. I believe this one was just like blasting an audio wave at like 130 megahertz or something. 130 hertz. Yeah.
Subtle.
Yeah, but that also basically just takes advantage of the same vulnerability, which is like the natural resonance.
Can you enlarge it? I can't even read that.
Cool. There we go. Yeah, the natural resonance of these hard drives.
Resonant frequency. Thank you, Magic Robots.
2 minutes to pack in the last few pieces of news.
All right, so this is a big one. Over on my screen, we have updates for 2 new zero-day vulnerabilities. And this is a big deal because these zero-day vulnerabilities seem to have been exploited in the wild. So you'll be seeing a flurry of news around needing to update your Apple products, and that is because they've been specifically targeted with 2 issues. One of them is an out-of-bounds issue in WebKit that could lead to the execution of arbitrary code by processing a specifically crafted web content. So the next one is an out-of-bounds issue in the operating system's kernel, which obviously is very bad and can be abused by a malicious application to execute arbitrary code with the highest privileges. So one of them seems to be a web-based attack, and the second one requires an application. But obviously, both of these are very bad. They are both fixed with improved bounds checking, and the fact that it's admitting that it may have been actively exploited adds some urgency to this attack. So if you are a particularly like a targetable person, if you're a journalist or somebody in a position where somebody might be targeting you, this is something that you're going to want to update immediately because it is being exploited. And this also joins a list of other rather severe bugs that have been patched recently that you can see here. But again, very important, no matter what Apple device you have, iOS device, like macOS device, make sure that it's updated within the next couple days because this is one of those really bad ones. All right, over to you.
Cool. So RTLS systems, or real-time location systems, are vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attack from this demonstration, which was actually, I believe, shown off at DEF CON or Black Hat. Oh, yeah, Black Hat. So the researchers here targeted 2 widely used RTLS systems, which are basically used for asset tracking and management inside of like warehouses or cities or stuff like that. So these usually operate on the ultra wideband. So this can span for something like 7 megahertz. It's called ultra wideband because it's a very wide range of frequencies. And this is used for very precise asset location and tracking. So it's pretty critical that these systems are up and running because otherwise some bad stuff can happen, as you will see in this demonstration. But basically they targeted 2 common systems that used Wi-Fi as like the end relay to like receive this information and like be able to geolocate various assets like around a warehouse or something like that. But the issue is that the packets that are being exchanged are completely unencrypted. So not only were they able to sniff these packets, but it was also just as easy to spoof them as well. So in the first part of this demonstration, they were able to use just Wireshark and I believe like a dongle in order to start sniffing for these different positioning packets. and using something called TDOA, which is I forget what that stands for now, but it's like delay of maybe arrival or something like that. Basically, just measuring how long it takes for a packet to actually be received, in addition to some other metadata that can be used to calculate the physical coordinates, as you can see from this graph here. So they were able to use this in order to basically eavesdrop and also intercept the location of assets and different things just based off these unencrypted packets. And in addition, it was also fairly easy to spoof them as well, which has some pretty bad implications, like possibly hiding the fact that you might be stealing something from a warehouse, or I don't know, like changing like a safety zone to, in this case, make it look like workers were outside the normal operation zone of important machinery. So that's pretty spooky.
All right, so that's about all the time we have for today. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat and asked great questions. And again, everybody who showed up to DEF CON and told us you liked the show, obviously why we're doing it. So hearing that you guys like watching it is another great reason for us to keep doing it. So thank you to Alex for coming on the show today and talking about some of the updates to the Nugget and also some of these cool microcontroller updates. We will see you all next time. Make sure to subscribe to Security Forward if you haven't already, and catch us on the live Q&A on Wednesday. See you then.